Greetings, Mr. Spera, and thank you for taking the time to speak with us today.
Thank you. Thank you.
How has the judicial process against 𝐫𝐭𝐤𝐥𝐢𝐯 and others affected the protection of human rights for those involved in this case? Have there been concerns about violations of internationally protected rights during this trial?
Thank you. I'm happy you asked me this question because it's a good opportunity for me to clarify my mandate. Because I'm afraid here there is a little confusion or misunderstanding about the mandate of the ombudsperson. First of all, I need to clarify that the ombudsperson does not belong to the judiciary. As an ombudsperson, I have no jurisdiction with reference to the trial and judicial proceeding. I cannot interfere with judicial proceeding, and any comment in relation to pending judicial proceeding would be inappropriate. This is actually not strange. It is in the very nature of the ombudsperson. No national ombudsperson anywhere, not even the Kosovo national ombudsperson, can interfere with the work of the judges. This is actually very much connected to the need to protect the independence of the judges, which is an important guarantee for the defendant. So the protection of the human right of person involved in case is a task of the judges who decide the case independently and without any interference from bodies which do not belong to the judiciary. And also the protection of human rights in the trials is guaranteed by the judges through the mechanism of appeal and review that is regulated by the law. The ombudsperson works in another branch, let's say. The ombudsperson deals with the administrative functioning of the chambers. So the ombudsperson belongs to the register, which is the structure which makes the court working, but it is separate from the judiciary. And this is a guarantee for the independence of the judiciary and finally for the protection of the fundamental rights of the person involved in trials. And also another big difference between the ombudsperson and the judiciary is the nature of the decisions. While the judges issue a mandatory order that can be implemented through force, the ombudsperson does not have such a power. The ombudsperson can only issue recommendations and which are not binding. And so the ombudsperson exercises a sort of soft power without any force in the execution of his decision, which is called reports. It is the court of the public opinion, finally, which know that possibly the ombudsperson issue a report which will be published. So this is how the system works. So the ombudsperson, for instance, an important task for the ombudsperson is the monitoring of the detention facilities. But the ombudsperson has no jurisdiction with reference to the order of detention. The order of detention is matter for the judges, but then how the detention facility is run, here the ombudsperson has a say.
We know that you cannot interfere in the process, but what measures are being taken to ensure that the rights of the accused are protected through the trial, through this trial?
Yes, as I said, since I have no role in the judiciary, I cannot express any specific opinion in relation to any specific case. So I will not comment to any specific and pending case. I know the perception is different because it's common the idea that the ombudsperson has a sort of power which is it's a sort of appeal of the appeal and a power which allow the ombudsperson to interfere in trials, but that is not true. So what in general I can say that the Kosovo Specialist Chamber mirrors in its organization the Kosovo justice system. So that means that there are several levels of appeal which allow the defendant who is not satisfied with the decision of the judges to possibly ask for a review of the decision. So first of all, it is possible to file an appeal, and then if the decision of the appeal panel does not satisfy the defendant, it is possible a further appeal to the Supreme Court, and in certain cases, it's also possible to refer to the Constitutional Court. So these are the system which guarantees the full protection of fundamental rights of parties in the trial, the independence of the judges, and the robust mechanism of appeal that is guaranteed by the law. These are very important safeguards for the protection of the right of the accused. This is how.
Yes. Have there been requests for special protection for them?
To me, you mean? Yes, we receive several complaints from defendant with reference often to matters which are related to pending cases. And in those cases, we have to deny our jurisdiction.
Yes, but let's talk a little bit about the transparency. How do you assess the transparency of this trial? And do you believe that the information made available to the public and the media is sufficient, especially concerning the rights of the individuals involved?
Yes, in general terms, the Specialist Chamber guarantee the transparency of the trial. Normally, the trials are public. It's possible to follow in person how the trials goes. It's possible, there is a gallery where it's possible for person to assist in person actually to the trial. And through the website and the video streaming of the trials is also possible for anywhere in the world to follow the trials at the Kosovo Specialist Chamber. Of course, there are cases where the judges believe that for certain reason, the trial should be closed to the public. Normally, this happens when the court deems that it is necessary to protect the witnesses or the victims. As usual, the decision taken in these cases is subject to a possible appeal in case the defendants are not happy with this decision of the judge or the panel. But anyway, what is important to say is that even when the trial is not open to the public, still the parties and their lawyer are present there and they can exercise their right of defense in the full capacity. So just to answer to your question, I think that the mechanism put in place by the court guarantee the transparency of the trials.
In the context of the human rights protected, has any of the accused or any of their relatives asked for your help for the protection of their rights? If yes, what steps have you taken to ensure their rights are fully respected?
Yes, as I said, we have received a complaint from person involved in trials, and when the complaint is related to a matter which is pending before a judge, we have to deny our jurisdiction. Indeed, we received a specific complaint in the trials that you mentioned, but for most of the reason of the complaint, there was a relation with the pending trial and the decision of the judges, so we had to deny our jurisdiction. However, that was an important occasion for me to clarify some matters which are important. When the ombudsperson issues a decision, he needs to explain the reason of the decision. So in that occasion, we had the opportunity to explain clearly how the mandate of the ombudsperson works, how and why the ombudsperson cannot interfere with the work of the judges, and how this limitation of the jurisdiction of the ombudsperson is in full compliance with the protection of the fundamental rights of the defendant, because it guarantees the independence of the judges. Even the Venice Commission, which is the Council of Europe Advisory Board, suggests that the ombudsperson should not interfere with the work of the judges. So this was an important part in general, let's say, for the clarification of legal matter. And another issue that was addressed in that complaint was in relation to the accountability of the Kosovo Specialist Chamber. The Specialist Chamber is independent from the national Kosovo judicial system, and this independency has been adjudicated as conform to the Constitution by the Constitutional Court. And so this independence justify a different mechanism of accountability of the judges. So the judges of the Kosovo Specialist Chambers, they have a different system of accountability compared to the national judges. The judges of the Kosovo Specialist Chamber are bounded by a code of judicial ethics. Of course, they are bounded by the Constitution, the law, etc. And in accordance to the code of the judicial ethics, there is also a panel which is competent to decide in case of possible disciplinary proceeding against the judges. And this system, in my opinion, guarantee the accountability of the court and a functioning which is conformed with the Constitution and the fundamental rights.
Yeah, you have just mentioned before about the pending trial. What do you think about this?
Excuse me?
You have just mentioned about the pending trial, about the complaints that you have, that they are addressed to you. What do you think about this issue?
As I said, when I receive complaints related to pending issues, I cannot express any opinion on that because it's beyond my mandate. And this limitation of the power of the ombudsperson is for the protection of the independence of the judges, which is the major guarantee for the defendant to have a fair trial. And the system for the defendant to challenge any decision of the judges they don't like is through the mechanism of review and appeal, which is provided by the law. The ombudsperson cannot intervene in these cases. The ombudsperson can intervene in a different phase. For instance, after and if there is an order by the court for detention, the ombudsperson is responsible to guarantee that the condition of detention in compliance with the fundamental rights. Yeah. But the ombudsperson cannot challenge the order for detention. So this is true for every order of the judges.
Yes. What measures have been taken by your office to ensure that the specialized chambers adhere to international standards of justice and transparency in the trial against former President Thaçi and others?
As I said, if you ask me what I can do with the pending trial, I have to repeat that the ombudsperson does not have any jurisdiction for the pending trial. The ombudsperson is available to receive complaint from persons who claim that their right has been violated, but with reference to the branch of the administrative structure of the specialist chamber, not to the judiciary. If any person who interacting with the Kosovo specialist chamber or the specialist prosecutor court believe that through the administration of the court, not because of the judicial system, they suffer a violation of their rights, they can file a complaint to me. And I receive the complaint, and we have a procedure to gather information, to help the person who filed the complaint to, if needed, to file, to respect, let's say, the procedure. And then we ask information to the body concerned, and then we finally issue a possible decision, a decision in the complaint. But still, this needs to be referred to the administrative, let's say, function of the court, not to the judicial function, which belong entirely to the judges.
Yeah, and how do you respond to the growing concerns following the repeated decisions of the Kosovo specialist chambers to deny former President 𝐻𝐭𝐤𝐥𝐥𝐢 𝐑𝐓𝐊 permission to visit his seriously ill father, and later to prevent him to attend his father's funeral?
Okay, I'm sorry, I have to repeat. The order, the decision about permissions are issued by the court, and the ombudsperson does not have any say about the court order. I cannot review the court order, and I don't have the power to...
Yes, but in the context of the human right, I'm asking you these questions in the context of the human rights.
This is my answer. If a person believes that the decision of the judge with reference to the permission to travel to his own country is a violation of the rights, the remedy is the appeal against that decision, because this is a typical, I would say, a typical decision that belongs to the judiciary. The ombudsperson does not belong to the judiciary. The ombudsperson cannot express any comment about that decision. What I can do, and I indeed do, I monitor the detention facility, and I make sure that the conditions of detention are in compliance with the fundamental right. But because this task has to do with the implementation of the order of detention, the order of detention or the denying of a permission for traveling to Kosovo, it's a matter for the judges. I don't have a say about that. This is how the system works. Yeah. And this is a guarantee for the defendant. I would like to stress this point, the fact that the judges are independent in their judgment.
Yeah, and now that the prosecution's witnesses' testimonies are nearing completion, is there any argument that could prevent the release of the accused to defend in the freedom?
Again, this decision will be taken by an independent judge within the trial. And if the decision that this judge will not satisfy the defendant will have the right to appeal the decision. What I can say is that when the judge considers any request for release, he has to decide based on the specific case-by-case situation. He has to evaluate if there is the risk of flight or the risk of obstructing justice or repeating crimes, but it is a complete evaluation that needs to be done by the judge of that specific trial. And another guarantee for the protection of the right of the person in detention is that every 2 months, the judge reviews the need of detention for possibly change the decision. But again, this is a matter which belongs entirely to the judicial to the judiciary, the judges, and possibly the appeal and for a possible review of the decision.
And to conclude from your perspective, how do you evaluate this process since the beginning until now in terms of respecting of human rights of the accused?
Again, I'm not going to give you an opinion about this trial, and I will not give you an opinion about any specific trial, because I cannot. What I can do is to tell you that the mechanism which is created by the law, it is in force to protect through the independence and the competency of the judges involved, the protection of the fundamental rights of the defendant. The judges are independent, are competent, the system of review of the decision is in place. There are 3 levels of possible appeal. All these mechanisms, it is enough to guarantee a proper functioning of the judicial system. Then what's happening in the specific case will be decided in that specific case by the judges of that trial based on the specific situation.
Mr. Spera, thank you for your time and insights today.
Thank you.